This is the Toyota RAV4, and we installed a Viofo A229 Plus front and rear dash camera into this vehicle. We're going to show you how we removed the A-pillar, how we took the housing apart behind the rear view mirror, how we run the wires from the front to the back of the vehicle, how we installed the rear camera onto the hatch safely, how we also dropped the dash and hardwired the dash camera directly to this Toyota RAV4. Let's go. So let's start by removing the weather stripping. We pop the A-pillar away from the airbag, and then we use a little small flathead and our fingernail to actually pop it by hitting the clips on either side of the clips that are holding it to the vehicle. Then we go and remove the tweeter. There's a little clip on there that we have to use a little flathead to just pop it. That way we can remove the panel completely from the vehicle. Now these clips, we have to just twist them and get them back in and clip them back into place. There's 2 of them total, and the reason why we have to do this is just so that when we put the panel back onto the vehicle, it goes on nice and solid and isn't all floppy, as you can tell there. Now, there are some different ways that people do it. Please don't go and cut these clips. I know there's people who say to do that on Reddit. Don't do that. We like to just use like our fingernails or little, like a little flathead to pop these on either side so that you can remove them from the vehicle safely. And as you can see, this is the airbag completely exposed, and we're going to make sure to run the wires safely next to that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the housing behind the rear view mirror, and we have to take our panel popper tool, like our little 4140, or you may want to use like a plastic panel popper tool, and we're going to have to clip off the little panel that's in the center of this in order to remove it from behind the rear view mirror. This makes it a lot easier to actually run the wires and hide them up high in the headliner, and then we're going to take off the plastic panel, selecting typically that's the rain sensor that's there. That way we can now easily run the wiring directly behind all the factory wiring and tuck it up into the headliner a lot easier. And we can reassemble the housing back in place and the rain sensor cover and have all the wiring looking nice and clean. Okay, so we have the wires over to the A-pillar now, and we're going to take the rear camera cable and tuck it in behind the A-pillar so we can run it safely to the back of the vehicle. We're going to tie strap the HK4 wire cable to the factory harnessing that's in behind the airbag, and then we're going to plug the tweeter back in so you have full set front, and snap the A-pillar back in place, and continue running the wire from the front of the vehicle to the back, making sure to tuck it in, removing the weather stripping as we continue going down, and putting the weather stripping back in place. And we're going to use our 4140 panel popper tool in order to actually tuck it in. You may want to use also a plastic panel popper trim tool, which comes in a lot of these dash cam kits. Now we're at the hatch, and we're going to remove the weather stripping. We're going to open up the factory grommet, and we're going to pull our wire through by the factory grommet. And then we're going to use our specialty tool, which some people use like a coat hanger, or they'll use other different methods like a tie strap to run the wire through. And we're going to pull our wire through the factory grommet. We're going to remove the factory paneling on the hatch. And then we're going to make sure to put the grommets back in place and position the wire to where we want the rear camera mounted, making sure that it doesn't interfere with the rear camera that's installed at factory from Toyota that's used for backing up or for while driving. Then we can put the panels back on and clean the surface of where our rear camera is going and mount the rear camera to the factory hatch nicely. So now that that's all mounted, you can see all the panels are put back on, the grommets are put back in place, and you can't see any wiring. It's a nice clean installation, exactly how people expect it to be done. Okay, let's move to the front of the vehicle. Now we're going to use our panel popper tool to pry off the panel on the side of the dash. That way we can get access to removing and dropping the panels down below by your feet and get access to the wiring but on the back side of the fuse box. So we've taken the one panel off, and now we're going to go and remove the sill plate, which you can use your fingers for this. Sometimes you need to use your panel popper, and you literally need to put your fingers up and make sure to pull away from the kick panel and pull upwards slowly. Well, you want to make sure that you don't pull too aggressively because you could always break a clip. And then all the way in the far corner in the kick panel, you have to loosen this little, it's like a plastic nut, and you just have to spin it counterclockwise. And as you continue spinning it counterclockwise, it will come out, And then you can actually take the kick panel and pull it outwards towards you. There is a couple clips, so just be careful not to pull too hard. You may need to use a panel popper. We do this a lot, paneling there, and sometimes the clips actually stay on the vehicle, and you're just going to need to go and remove those clips with like a proper panel popper tool. So now we're removing the actual under dash, and you can see there's a bunch of Phillips screws and a couple 10 mils. Those are basically the two tools that you need in order to drop this dash. And we're going to show you all these plugs we're going to unplug and get out of the way, because they kind of get in the way for us getting underneath the dash and getting to the back side of the fuse box in order for us to actually hardwire it safely to this Toyota RAV4. So as we continue unplugging all the plugs, and obviously we recommend taking a picture of this, that way you remember which ones go where. We're going to take out the 10 mil bolts so that we can actually drop the bar out of the way and get access to the back side of the fuse box, because we do know where the actual ignition wire is, so that we can use that to hook up directly to our hardwire cable. And as you can see, we hooked up our test light so we could verify that that wire is 100% correct to hook up for ignition. And this is our constant power and ground, which we like to go to the back side of the OBD2 on vehicles. Pin 16 is constant power and pin 4 is ground. And this is completely safe. We've done this on thousands of vehicles now. We don't have any issues with going there. And that is our ignition wire. As you can see, I believe that one's a 27 pin harness, pin 13, but always verify your wiring before making any connections. You're probably wondering why we are wiring it this way in this Toyota RAV4. Here's a little short clip that will explain that for you.
Lexus and Toyota vehicles, when you're installing a dash cam, a lot of times people are using fuse taps. If you take a look under the dash, the fuse box is right here. But what's below that? A common place where you rest your foot. The fuse box actually sits flush. So if you use a fuse tap at all, you can easily dislodge it with your foot, just even by accident, which means your vehicle could end up having problems actually driving away. Or if you use a fuse tap, you can't actually put this cover back on. So what we do is actually wire to the back side of the fuse box. That way all the wires are completely hidden and it doesn't affect your fuse box in any way, shape, or form on a Lexus and Toyota vehicle. We typically go to wires that are safe. That way we're not causing any challenges with your vehicle. Think about those questions to ask next time you're getting a Lexus or Toyota for a dash cam installation.
As we assemble it back together, we're going to put the 10 mil bolts back in after we put the bracket back in place and make sure it's attached safely to the airbag. We're going to put our two 10 mil bolts back in and put the panel and all those plugs that we told you to take a picture of. We're going to plug all those back in, as well as the hood release bracket. We put all the under panel in, the OBD2 cable, put back in the Phillips screws. We take the clip off with the panel popper tool that we were bringing up to you earlier, put it back onto the kick panel so we can put it back in place correctly. We move over to our low battery protection of the Viofo hardwire cable, and we tape it up with the set voltage that we recommend. Okay, so now we're going to plug in the Viofo A229 Plus dash camera, do the little final setup, and we've already cleaned off the windshield. Now we're going to mount the Viofo A229 Plus directly to the windshield, set up and make any adjustments to the dash camera to make sure it's set up for the proper angle while driving. And as you can see, all the wires are completely hidden. It's mounted off to the passenger side, so it's not going to interfere or cause any distraction for the driver while driving this Toyota RAV4. I hope you enjoyed our dash cam installation video for a Toyota RAV4. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. If you are looking for professional dash cam installation in Greater Vancouver or Greater Toronto area, please contact us, safedrivesolutions.com. Thanks again.